It's time for another Dice Tower review with Brian Hoier.
Hi, welcome to another Dice Tower game review. My name is Brian.
And I'm Patrick.
And you may recognize me from our iOS game review section.
And I'm usually the one on the other side of the camera.
And now you see why.
Well, today we've decided to shake things up a little bit. Not only am I on the front of the camera this time, but we've actually decided to do a review on a physical boxed board game, Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Betrayal at House on the Hill is a unique take on the cooperative game genre with a little twist, but we'll get to that later. First, let's take a look at the components, then we'll do a walkthrough on how to play, and we'll end with a nice little recap and our final thoughts on the game.
Let's pop open the box and get going. Okay, we thought we'd just start out with showing you what you would find when you opened up the box. The box itself actually has a really nice insert to keep all these items organized, and that's really a good thing because there are a lot of items that comes with this game. To begin with, at the top here, you'll see three booklets. Now, the first booklet right here is the rule booklet for Betrayal at House on the Hill. Now, that one you want to read right away. It contains all the rules that you'll need for running the game, and it's actually fairly well written. The other two books, however, do not read. As a matter of fact, you should not read those at any point until you're actually playing the game. This is kind of what the game hinges upon, is the secrets held in those two books. One of these is for the survivors, the ones who are not the traitor in the game. And the third book is for the traitor only. Now, who is the traitor? How do you decide who the traitor is? We'll discuss that in a second. Below each of these books, you'll notice that there's a set of cards. There's three cards that are utilized in the game: the item card, the event cards, and the omen cards. And how those are drawn are dependent on which room you enter to during the game. We'll show you that as well. Below that is the starting point for all the players. This is called the entry foyer and the entry hall. That's where all the players start. It also comes with a lot of dice. Now, these are not your normal six-sided dice. These dices only have pips on four of the sides, and the only pips are either 2 or 1. The other two sides are absolutely blank. Now, that gives us a little bit of randomness to the game, a little bit of the unknown, which kind of helps fill in with the theme of the game. And finally, below here are the different rooms that you can explore at House on the Hill. Now, there are a lot of different rooms. There are some for each different level of the house: upper, basement, and ground. And the house expands as you explore it, so the setup is never the same twice.
There are 6 character cards in the box, and each card is actually double-sided to represent 2 different characters. Now, each character has 4 traits. On this side, you've got your speed. Up here, you have your might. And those are called your physical traits. So whenever the game calls for you to take physical damage, you, the player, get to choose how you take it. So let's say I take 2 physical damage. I can choose to take 1 from might and 1 from speed. Or I could do both from speed if I so choose. Both from might. You get the idea. The mental attributes are on this side. You have sanity at the top and knowledge along the bottom. And then you have rows of numbers. Now, each character starts on the green number right there. So this character starts with a speed of 4, and you mark that with these little black pieces that clip on. Unfortunately, as you can see, as soon as I let go, they can slide off very easily when bumped. That is one of the weaker aspects of the game, unfortunately. So I mark a speed of 4, his might of 5, he'll have a sanity of 3, and a knowledge of 3. Now, if you look, the numbers don't necessarily count up in order. His lowest speed is 2. And then it goes 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. And when he gets to the top, that's the highest speed he can have. And his might goes 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 8. So you just slide it up or down 1 click, not necessarily by the number itself. Every time you take damage, you go down. And if a card says your attribute goes up, you just slide it up the number of slots. When you get all the way to the bottom and hit the skull, your character's dead. It does not matter which of the 4 attributes this happens in, you'll be a dead character. So that's why it's kind of nice to have some option as to how much physical damage I take. If I'm on my last might click here, and I have a couple left for speed, I take 2 damage, I'm going to want to take them from my speed and not from the might. The game comes with 6 figures. Now remember, I said there were 6 cards that were each double-sided, making for 12 characters total. Well, some of these figures have to double as different characters, and unfortunately, the figurine only matches one side of the character card. The flip side, you use the same figurine but he'll look nothing like the picture on the card. And that's just something you have to get used to. The very nice thing about these figures is they're already pre-painted. They're fairly well detailed. Now, I'll be the first to admit it's not the best paint job in the world, but it's a nice perk when many games don't do this at all.
Okay, what we have right here is we have the initial setup for the game. We've decided to go with 3 different characters. Ox Bellows, and we picked him because he has the highest might and speed. We have little Zoe Ingstrom, and we picked her because she actually has the highest sanity out of most of the characters in the game, which is pretty funny since it's a little girl that she represents. And finally we have Professor Longfellow, who has the highest knowledge out of everyone in the game. So 3 well-rounded characters for this game. Now, off to the side here we have a stack of the different room cards that we'll be selecting from as we explore the house. And the top up here we have the landing, which represents the upstairs of the house, and we have the basement landing, which will represent the downstairs of the house. Now, the upstairs of the house we can get to right away through a series of stairs in the original entryway. But the basement landing, now, that's a little trickier to get to. There are several methods of getting into the basement. Several of them are not ways you want to get to the basement, such as trapdoors and holes in the floor. But there's also some stairways that can get you into the basement as well, and you have to find those as the game unfolds. Now, to start off with, you have to choose who goes first, and of course, as with most games, that is up to the group. But we're going to pretend that Zoe Ingstrom has the first move. Now, how far she can move, that is dependent on her speed that is set on the card. And right now, Zoe starts with a speed of 4, so she can move up to 4 rooms or 4 spaces. Now, the initial 3 rooms I can go without stopping, but if I go through a door, I have to choose an item or a room from the room deck here and see what that shows me. So I'm going to take Zoe and I'm going to move 1, and then I'm going to go through that door and into 2. Now I have to draw a card from the card deck. I have to make sure that the card I draw is appropriate for the level that I'm on, which is the ground level. So each card has a list of where you can place them. For example, this one says upper or ground level, but I'm on the ground level, so this is fine for me at this time. If there was a card on this that did not say ground level, I would actually take it off and set it to the side and keep repeating that until I found a card that is appropriate to play for the level I'm on. So I'm going to start with the ground level. Now if you notice, I picked a ground level card and there's 3 doorways. One of those doorways has to match up with the one that I walked through. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to set it up just like this. So she walks into the patio. Now if you notice down at the corner here of the patio, there's a special symbol. That symbol means that it's time for me to draw one of the cards. As soon as I draw a landing or a room card with that symbol, my movement stops. And I draw the card and perform what that card tells me to do. Okay, so I walked into a room with this little symbol on it. Now that means that it's time for me to draw a card from the deck that has that same symbol, the little squiggly line. That is an event card. Once my character enters into a room with that symbol, I flip over the top card and I do what it says. This one's called the closet door. And what you want to do is you want to read the flavor text out loud so the other players can hear what happened and then follow what the card tells you to do. And it says, that closet door is open, just a crack. There must be something inside. Put the closet token in this room. And it does come with tokens such as this one that say closet. And I put that in this room so that the other players from here on out, when they enter this room, knows that they have an opportunity to do this. Once during an explorer's turn, the explorer can roll 2 dice to open the closet. And depending on what they receive on those 2 dice rolls tells you what will happen. So I take 2 of the special dice that come with the game, roll them, and you notice that on my dice roll I have a total of 2 pips pop up. And according to that, it says that I draw another event card, at which time I would draw the next event card, read the flavor text again, and follow its rules. Once all of those items are finished, it is the end of my turn, and we go on to the next player.
Okay, so now it's my turn. And I'll take Ox Bellows here, who has a speed of 4. I can go 1, 2. Now remember, this room's been visited prior to my coming in. And since one character already drew a card, I do not have to stop here and I do not have to draw that card. My turn can continue. So I'm going to go 3. I've drawn the next ground level card on top of the deck. And this time, it has a new symbol we haven't been introduced to yet. So now that I'm in the kitchen, I have to stop because that room has a symbol, and that symbol appears to be a little raven. I find the deck that matches that, which in this case is the Omen deck, and I draw the top card. I'll read it to the group. It says, ring, a battered ring with an incomprehensible inscription. If you attack an opponent that has a sanity trait, you can attack with sanity instead of might. Your opponent then defends with sanity and damages mental instead of physical. Normally when you battle, you roll the number of dice equal to your current might. But this card would let me flip that if I had a higher sanity than something else, for instance, and that was my stronger trait. At the bottom it says, make a haunt roll now. What a haunt roll is, that's what kind of decides where the game is going to go from here. Currently, we're all on the same team, working together to explore a haunted house. Discover its secrets, make it out alive, whatever. Once you roll the haunt roll, which is 6 dice, I can get the 2 extras out of the way. You add up the number of pips that pop up. Wow, that was actually pretty good. I rolled 7. The haunt only begins if you roll a number that is lower than the current number of haunt roll cards out on the desk. We only have 1 haunt roll. This is our first card to come out. I would have had to roll a 0 in order for the haunt to begin. So as you can see, it'll be a long time when you roll this many dice before the haunt actually starts and the traitor is revealed, at which point one of you will become the bad guy and the rest have to escape and try to survive.
Okay, we're going to assume for a moment that we've been playing this game for a little bit, and the professor has walked into a new raven room, or a new haunt room, and this time he walked into the junk room. Now, we're going to assume that we followed the same rules. We pulled out another haunt card or another omen card, and we rolled the dice. And we rolled 1 pip. Not very likely, but in this case, we're going to assume that we did. Now, what happens at this point is the haunt begins. Once you roll a number less than the omen cards that you have out on the table or that have been revealed, you begin the haunt. Now, to begin the haunt, you first have to go into that secret traitor's book that I told you not to read beforehand. This is when you break it out. On the very front page of that traitor book, you will see that there's a nicely laid out chart that explains the haunt. Now, we have to figure out who the traitor is first. So what we do is we find what room did the haunt begin in. And with us, it began in the junk room, which is right down here. Then it asks what haunt card was popped up. Well, in this case, we popped up the spear. So we go all the way here until we find the spear. And you match the junk room up with the spear, and you notice that you begin on something that says number 17. That is the 17th haunt, or the 17th story in the book. Now, to figure out who is the traitor in this story, you match up the number down here to the number 17. And it says it is left of the haunt revealer. So in this case, the professor revealed the haunt, and the player to the left of that individual is the one who becomes the traitor in this story. Okay, so what happens at this point? Well, once the traitor has been revealed, and the haunt story, or the betrayer's story has been revealed, 2 things happen. First of all, the traitor will take this book, and they actually have to leave the room and go into another room, where they will open up the book and read story 17. At this point, the traitor now has his own goals and his own reason for being in this house, but he doesn't want the rest of the players to know what that is. So he leaves and reads up on the story. Now, those of us who are left behind, we are the survivalists. We're the ones who have to survive the story, and we all break open this book. Now, in this book, this is kind of like the good guy's story for that betrayer. We go and open up to story number 17, because that is the one that matches the traitor's story, and we read that out loud, and it tells us what we are to accomplish. So at this point, the survivors have their goals, the traitor has their goals, and the rest of the game is played out traitor versus survivalists to see who wins. Like we said, it's a cooperative game with a twist.
So, final thoughts. Well, I'll start with the pros. The pros of this game is the fact that it has 50 different scenarios. With 50 different scenarios, you won't be seeing the same storyline pop up anytime soon, and you have a lot of replay value to the game. Also, it comes with a lot of room tiles, and they're laid out randomly, so every single time, not only will you have a different story, but you have a different mansion completely to explore, with different places where the closet might pop up, the secret stairs. Don't worry, I won't give away too many spoilers. there are a lot of great things that you would expect to find in a nice haunted house. And I also like the theme. There are a lot of horror games out there, but most of them are pretty much all zombie fests, and it's kind of nice to have that traditional haunted house, kind of that 1950s spooky black and white movie look to it.
Well, I guess I'm going to take on the negatives then. There's not too many, but there are a few that I will point out. The first one that annoys me the most is the character cards. In order to keep track of your attributes, you have to use those sliding black pieces of plastic, and unfortunately they do not stay where they're supposed to stay. That is be my biggest pet peeve. Oftentimes I'll look down and I notice that my black piece has shifted or maybe has even come off the card just by me, moving it to the side for a second. It's very hard to remember sometimes where you left off with that attribute, and you have to kind of put things back together. They could have done a much better job of controlling the attribute slide. Another problem that I have with it is there are 50 stories in it, but my biggest problem has been that it's kind of a hit and miss when you come to that that traitor's point or the haunt. Some haunts are really good and they're firing well and your players are getting into it. And other times the haunts are pretty just much a miss. You're fighting the house more than each other. There's not much of a story there, or the story is so cheesy that you really don't care if you make it out of the house at that point. So those are my biggest complaints. There are 50 haunts. If you play it multiple times, once you read haunt number 17, and if you've played it enough, you'll immediately know what your goal is for both the traitor and you for haunt 17. So then it gets to be, what is the point? I would like them to possibly publish more for this, or maybe put something different haunts online for us to expand with, because if you play it enough, I have a feeling that would get a little bit slow and a little bit boring.
Now, the way we review is on a 10-point scale. But before we get to that, I want to mention we are doing the second edition, and it's the re-release of the second edition. If you go online to Board Game Geek or any website, you'll see a lot of complaints that the room tiles get spongy and warped and won't lay flat. Well, what happened was those people had a bad batch, and they did get replaced, and every version that came out after that had fixed tile cards. So we have the fixed version with the nicer components, and so that's kind of a non-issue in this review. Our scale goes from 1 to 10. 1 would be, I don't know, an abomination, do not buy. 5 would be, it's an okay game, and then of course 10 would be a must-have for your collection. Now, there are definitely some flaws with this game, but it kind of has a soft spot for me because it's one of the first games I bought that kind of got me into the whole thematic board gaming hobby, and I really like it a lot, and it really went over well with our particular board game group. We play it a lot. Everyone has enjoyed it. We've introduced new people into the group, and they've all enjoyed it and had a lot of fun. And like I said, there's just so many different scenarios to play. So I know it's far from perfect, and I might catch some flack for this, but I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. That's just for me personally, but I think it is a real good game. Nice components, a lot of fun, and it plays quick. We haven't mentioned that yet, but you can play it. I believe our quickest game has been right around 40 minutes. Our longest game is maybe topped out at an hour 15. So you can play it fast and have time for more games on game night.
Now I'm going to score it a little bit lower, and don't get me wrong, even though I come up with a couple of things that I knocked off for Betrayal at House on the Hill, it is a soft spot for everybody in our gaming circle. We play this a lot. They like the theme. I won't give it as much of a 9 for myself because of the problems that I pointed out, but I'll give it definitely a good 8, 7.5 to an 8. There are some things that they could improve on it. I would like to see some more haunts, but I think it is a good game to play with your group, especially if you have a short time, or if you just want a good game between games. This is a great one to knock out and bring.
And it plays up to 6. You can't forget that.
That is true.
Good for big groups.
We do have quite a big group that meets on time, and so this is one of the few that can actually allow all of us to play at once. Well, there you go. That's Betrayal at House on the Hill. I would suggest you purchasing it.
I would agree. It was one of our first purchases, and it's seen the table a lot.
This is Patrick and
Brian,
and we want to thank you for watching. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.